What's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co host, Collin Alcabes. Today, we're going to be discussing Will Cuylle. He is the rookie that made it out of training camp and right onto the Rangers roster. Before we get into things, make sure you like, subscribe, leave your thoughts on the topic in the comment section below, and make sure you check out all of our social media accounts at Fireside Rangers on both Twitter, now known as X, and Instagram. So make sure to leave a follow and a like there. But before we really get into things, Collin, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. It's the first day of regular season hockey, and I'm excited. I'm repping my Kraken jersey, even though I am a diehard Rangers fan. I am also just a fan of the sport. But yeah, no, I'm excited for the NHL to get underway tonight.
Yes, of course. Tonight is opening night for the NHL. The Rangers don't play until Thursday, where they'll start their season against Buffalo. So we'll be covering that in the upcoming days as well. But now let's just talk about Will Cuylle for a second. He had an incredible training camp. He beat out Brendan Othmann, who was another favorite to possibly make the team this year. But Cuylle was the one who ultimately got the honor. So just what you saw during training camp and preseason, were you obviously you were impressed by him, but what do you think really stood out from Cuyle's play, and what gave him that little bit of an edge over Othmann?
I think Othman is still just very raw. I've said this in previous episodes. I thought Cuylle was the favorite the whole time. I think Cuylle is fits better for what we need at this current moment in time, and that is a grinder, a guy who's going to go to the front of the net. He's going to take away the goalie's eyes. He's going to win those puck battles along the boards. He's not afraid to bring a bit of a physical element to it. And Brendan Othmann doesn't shy away from physicality either. But I think that the lack of time in the AHL due to whatever the deal was will determine how he develops. And I think that is why he didn't make the team out of camp, and also due to the fact that we are stacked on the left and right wings at this current moment. And I don't think they want to start Brendan Othmann in a bottom six role, whereas Will Cuylle, as a good forechecker and a good grinder, will excel in a bottom six role. I think that is ultimately why he was able to beat out Brendan Othmann.
I agree with you there. And just like one thing that you kind of touched upon is just the fact that he is a natural left winger, Cuylle. And the Rangers have a lot of left wingers on the team. You know, Kreider and Panarin will always lock up the top six for the next couple of years. Lafreniere was down there on the third line, but now he's potentially transitioning over to the right wing. So that kind of just leaves the question of where is Cuylle going to fit on this lineup and who's going to get the boot and not make the roster anymore. And there's a couple of different options there. You know, there's put Lafreniere up on the top six on the right side, have Cuylle fit in there on the left. But at the same time, Lafreniere hasn't really looked too good on that right side. You know, he only had 1 point throughout preseason. So me personally, the type of player that you described him as, the grinder, that type of style of hockey, I think a third line role would look pretty nice for him. You know, he's not going to be the biggest point producer this upcoming season in that role, but he has the skills and the abilities to make it work down there. So that's where I would put him if I were Peter Laviolette. But I'm curious to know your thoughts, where you could slot him on the lineup.
I couldn't agree more. I think if you look at his style of play, I think he's a perfect third or fourth line guy. I think he would actually give us one of the better third lines in hockey if he was to slide in on that left wing on the third line. I mean, if you look at his production last year, 45 points in 69 games, 25 of them being goals. The year prior in the OHL, he had 59 points in 80 points in 59 games. And obviously, with third line minutes, it's less time, but I still think he'll be able to make the most of those opportunities. And even if he doesn't, just tire out the opposing team and allow for those top two lines to make more of a contribution in terms of points. I think he's well suited, and I think that he'll complement the other players on that third line.
Yeah, and who do you project to be on that third line with them? Because I know there's a little bit of a debate between Philip Hedl and Vincent Trocheck as center. You know, they could be flip-flopped back and forth. If Hedl's healthy, I would like to see him up on the second line and then Trocheck to start down on the third. But I think a third line that consisted of Cuylle, Trocheck, and Blake Wheeler, that would be like one of the best third lines in the entirety of the NHL.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I said in my perfect world, Hedl is centering that is the 2C. Lafreniere is playing the right wing on the second line with Kakko on the first. So the kid line is sadly disbanded, but as needed to give them more minutes. And you give Trocheck, who's also not afraid to get in the nitty gritty. Blake Wheeler is a very north-south player. You put all those guys in the same lines, and I think you could see some good things happen. You get a good forechecking line with the ability and high upside of point producing. I mean, Blake Wheeler had 50 points last year off the top of my head, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, Trocheck's points are a little inflated due to play with Panarin, but I still think that he is very capable of driving a line and putting up a solid number of points without Panarin, as he did with the Hurricane and the Panthers and everywhere else he's been. So I think that would be a dream third line, and you're right in saying that it would be one of the better third lines in the NHL.
Yeah, and then just like right before we get into just the season projection, what we think he's gonna have in point totals and everything, just last question, because going into training camp and preseason, we knew we had a lot of talent. We had Cooley, we had Othman, but we always said, and everyone agreed, the chances of a rookie making the team were very, very slim because of the amount of talent the Rangers already had and the depth that the Rangers possess. But now that Cooley's here, someone isn't going to be playing. He's going to replace someone on the roster. There's a couple of names out there, like Pitlick is one of those guys who wouldn't hurt to get the boot. But you look at practices recently, and it kind of seems, based on the lines that Laviolette's been rotating, Jimmy Vesey might be the one getting scratched for opening night. So I personally disagree with that. I think Jimmy Vesey is one of the most underrated players on the Rangers. He came in off the PTO last season, looked really well. He got time to play on pretty much all four lines at some point in the season and succeeded at all of them. So if I were Laviolette, I would not cut Jimmy Vesey. I would stick with Pitlick or someone else down there on the fourth line. But I'm curious to know who you think he's going to replace and who you think he should replace.
I think, like you said, unfortunately, it does look like at this current moment in time, it will be VC. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I also think that VC was fantastic last year, coming off the PTO, earning himself another contract, playing well in all facets of the game. I thought he was fantastic. I'm not hating on a guy like Pitlick. I think Pitlick brings a lot to the team, but I think VC has the familiarity with the players in the locker room, and I think that goes a little bit farther than what Pitlick brings. In my ideal world, I'm still looking to trade Barclay Goodrow, but now that they've given him assistant captain, I doubt that that's going to happen. But in my ideal world, that fourth line would consist of Pitlick, Bonino, and VC, and that would be one of the better lines, one of the better fourth lines in hockey as well. Like I said, we're extremely deep. You mentioned it before. We are ready to make a run, and I think that we're so ready on every level of our team that there's not really many weaknesses. But it also makes it tough when it comes down to the final cuts because you're going to lose somebody good. You know what I mean? And that's the difficulty of it, and that's the decision that Laviolette's going to have to make. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what he makes and what Drury thinks of it, given that Drury just gave VC a new contract, and I get he signed Pitlick too. But I think he liked VC coming in off the PTO, and I think that he liked his play enough to warrant another contract. So I'm interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, that is true. VC did just sign a new contract, so it is unfortunate to see him likely being cut for opening night. But at the same time, I don't think Drury or anyone else in the hockey world expected Cooley to come in as hot as he was and really just force the Rangers' hand and earn his way into the lineup. But let's just get right into the big question, the exciting part that everyone's wondering, the title of this video. How is Cooley going to perform? He's made the NHL. Last season, he did have a little bit of time up with the Rangers. He played in 4 games. He went scoreless in each, but he was down on the fourth line, didn't really have the opportunity to. But now this is his big shot. He's coming into the NHL. I think a big factor that will determine how many points he produces will come from where he plays. If he's up on the second line, he's going to have a lot more points because he's getting more ice time. He's playing with Panarin. But down on the third line, not as much ice time, but he's still playing with some pretty solid talent. I just think from a third line prediction, because we've agreed that's where we think he's going to play and probably where he should play. I think in his rookie season, if he plays good with Trocheck and Wheeler, I could see him hitting high 20s, low 30 points.
I agree. I was exactly around the area that I was aiming for. Obviously, again, it depends on where he slots in, who his line mates are. But I mean, if Lafreniere struggles out the gate, you could easily see him flip to the right wing and play on that second line and be the net front presence for the 2 skill guys of Chytil and Panarin, or whether it's Trocheck and Panarin, whatever they decide to do. So I think you're lucky in the sense that he's able to do whatever you need him to do. He's very malleable and where you can play him. And I think no matter where he goes, he'll succeed. But I think that high 20s, low 30s is a good estimate when you're looking at a player like Cuylle and his skill set and his abilities.
I agree. And I like that you brought up the fact that he could potentially move up to the second line if Lafreniere really just continues to disappoint. Our other co-host, Anthony, did write an article about that today on empiresportsmedia.com. So if you want to learn more about that, check out his work over there. But I think the really big thing about this Cuylle call-up is it's very low risk, high reward, where we do have so much depth where, yeah, we can start Cuylle at the beginning of the season. And if he doesn't really pan out and he's not ready yet still, bring Jimmy Vesey right back into the lineup. It's not like a disappointing season is really going to put the Rangers in any jeopardy of having an open hole in their lineup right there. So I'm very excited for this upcoming season. I think Cuylle is going to be one of those players who just comes into the league and really makes an immediate impact. We both kind of expect him to not put up huge amount of points in his rookie season, but that's not the role he's going to be playing down on the third line. Like you mentioned, Collin, he is going to be that grinder. But before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts on Cuylle? Any other bold predictions or thoughts on his play?
I do have one. I think that at the end of the season that this kid will lead the team in fights. I think he's a very scrappy player. I don't think that there's a lot of other guys who are willing to step up in that role outside of maybe Goudreau. But I think that he's not afraid to drop the gloves. He's not going to take a lot of bad penalties, but he's not going to be afraid to stick up for his teammates either. And no matter what line he's playing on, I think he's going to be willing to go out there. He's not going to be like Ryan Reeves, but he will be like a semi-enforcer, semi-skill guy. I think he's the perfect blend of player that the Rangers are looking for, as opposed to the black hole that Ryan Reeves was. Whenever he was out there, the puck just seemed to be on the other team's stick. I think Cuylle has the ability to not only make a team pay on the score sheet, but in physicality as well. And I'm excited to see what he brings.
You're 100% right there, because the Rangers do have a serious problem with lacking in physicality. We saw it exposed to the extreme last playoffs against the Devils, where we were just tried to be too crafty, too quick, too pretty, and it came back to bite us. So hopefully the addition of Cuylle will not only bring success in points, but in grinding, fights, hits. Who knows? He might even give Jacob Trouba a run for his money and the team leader in hits. But we'll see what happens on Thursday opening night when Cuylle hits the ice with the Rangers for the 5th game in his career, first time as a regular member. But until then, we'll be sure to keep you updated on everything Rangers here on Fireside Rangers on YouTube and as well as on X and Instagram. So be sure to like, subscribe, leave your thoughts on Will Cuylle in the comments below. Do you think he's going to have a great rookie season, or did he just have a lucky preseason? Let us know down below. But until next time, have a good one, and
Let's go Rangers.
Rangers.